So I'll catch us up real quick from last week. So perhaps this is scratching an itch. I think the whole world's freaked out. So why wouldn't you be crazy with everything that is going on? And this kind of looks like me when I look at some of the news. But then I settle down to this. I'm unleashing my inner superhero. What would your superhero be? Huh? Jesus? Well, yeah, that's true. But I was thinking Superman, Batman, Flash, Mighty Mouse. That's good. I like that. Some of you don't even know who Mighty Mouse is, do you? So this book cover, I think it was by Chuck Swindoll, is just great. Revelation is an undeniable reminder that God is central to humanity's story. So, Revelation 3:10. This, of course, is the 2 chapters that contain the 7 letters that Jesus wrote to the 7 churches. And in it, he said something that gives us comfort, almost like it was written for right now. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I also will keep thee from the hour of temptation. Now, what's coming is future, okay? From the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world. So whatever he was talking about is a temptation that was going to come upon the whole world. Well, these times we're living are the global times. Never been a time like this in the history of the world. Shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. That's a buzz phrase in the book of Revelation. As you read the book of Revelation, just notice every time it talks about earth dwellers, those that dwell upon the earth. We're not earth dwellers. This is not our home. We're just passing through. But those who are left behind in the tribulation, they're earth dwellers. There'll be some who will be saved and turn to their Messiah, to their Savior. But they're going to have a hard way to go. The rest of the world are referred to as earth dwellers, or they that dwell upon the earth. And that is not us. So I believe that Jesus really had in mind any of the tough times that churches go through and Christians go through. But I think uniquely because he knew we were going to be coming to this global time in Christianity. But before we get to any more prophecy, I want to talk about a little bit of news that has been going on. So the United Methodist Church has just had their conference and completed it. And it's going to seem like I'm picking on the United Methodists, but they're just a picture of what's going on in Christianity in America. For several years, conservatives have been leaving the United Methodist Church or threatening to because of what's going on with LGBTQ, XYZ. So a couple of things.
Good evening. This is the final one of our wrap-up videos for the United Methodist General Conference. I'm Jay Grainer, and I'm the pastor at Trinity UMC in Duncanville, Texas.
And I'm Greg Neal, senior pastor at Grace United Methodist Church in Des Moines, Iowa. It's been an incredible week. An incredible time of...
So do y'all know what was in the news about them? The reason I'm bringing this up is because they have voted a bunch of things pro-gay.
Unexpected, vision and experience, unexpected presence of the Spirit.
Yeah, there was a Spirit presence.
More conferences throughout the years that I have never experienced one as an...
Everything we wanted we got, which is just shocking to us.
It's incredible. Totally unexpected that it would be this strong.
So they're going to mention the things that were done. But I want you to understand the reason why the United Methodist Conference did everything this year. And that's because the conservatives left and didn't show up. Now, that's a good thing for them, but this is the reason why instead of instead of 50 plus percent, just enough to do things this way, they have, and they're going to talk about this, they had huge majorities. So a sea change has happened in the United Methodist Church.
I fully expected the social principles to pass. I fully expected the removal of the harmful language, but I didn't expect it by these margins, 57, 60%, sure. But 79, 80, 90%? No, I didn't expect it to be that good.
And what this means is that the only way we got margins that big is that many of the African delegates decided to vote with us.
Or what I just said.
That was totally unexpected.
It's hard for us to even analyze what that means, other than it's a day of new cooperation.
It is a day of new beginnings, and it's a new United Methodist Church. Now, there were several pieces of legislation that came through that shared that spirit, some incredible things. For instance, a pathway for those clergy who have been defrocked, run out of the ministry, have their credentials taken from them for either being LGBTQ or for being an ally and performing same-sex weddings or supporting in other ways, clergy who have had their orders stripped from them by a vindictive, mean-spirited church, they're being given a fast-track return pathway to re-enter the denomination, to re-enter ordination, to re-enter their ministries through a much simpler process than had previously existed. That's huge. And my prayer is for so many who have lost their credentials to be able to re-enter ministry.
Okay, have you had enough? I've had enough. They go on, they are just ecstatic. The United Methodist Church has made a huge change, a lurch in this direction. Before, they had their problems and they kind of tried to be Christian, and it's all gone now. So, not only that, but the United Methodist Church has had debate over the years, not enough to actually divest from Israel. They did it at this conference. Yes.
I was just invited to join a Princeton motorcycle club, and got their address and everything. And it's a United Methodist Church, and they're flying an American flag with a rainbow flag underneath of it. I don't know how you bless a motorcycle in the first place, so I'm out.
Yeah. We are going to be, I'll mention this a little bit later too. We're very much like Lot. The scripture says Lot was vexed living in Sodom. Here we are. Some of you could tell tales far beyond what I know. Anyway, I was going to share some of this with you. Just simply, the United Methodists this year did vote to divest from any monies going to companies that were invested in Israel. So the apostasy just continues in Christianity in America. So why do we study prophecy? Hardly anybody is. And we've talked about this in the last few weeks, there are a lot of Christian preachers who are mocking preachers like me, who believe that the church will be removed before the tribulation begins. We're being mocked. So why do we study prophecy? Why do I think it's important enough for us to do it? Here's a headline from Harbinger's Daily. You go read the article. This is just the headline. Pastors, don't prepare the bride. Now, who's the bride? Church. Don't prepare the bride to meet the Antichrist. That's what all these mockers who say we're going to go through the tribulation, they say their pastors need to prepare their people to meet the Antichrist. Rather, prepare the bride to meet her bridegroom. That's scriptural. And that says it pretty well why we study prophecy. So I'm just going to run down through these fairly quickly. Does somebody have a mint that might help her? Oh, okay. All right. Sounds like you're having a difficult time with it. Okay, so some of the things that have accelerated why we began to do the studies, and this is just a smattering of these things. We're not going to talk about them all tonight. I just want to, people who are watching on YouTube will be able to pause this and look at them. We'll move on through. A lot of different things going on. The anti Semitism being the last that we talked about last week. Who would have ever believed? I mean, even just a year ago, who would have believed that it would be okay for people to say they hated Jews out loud? You know what we called those back in the day? Nazis. They were Nazis. They still are. They just don't go by that name. So some of the stress points that's making us crazy, all of this, you know all of it without me mentioning them. But we ended up talking about some of the personal stress points that you need to be thinking about that you may not be consciously aware of it, but they are putting you in a stressful position. One of them is information overload. That has been true in the modern era, but how much more now? When I entered the ministry, 1976, poor, I would have to scrimp together the money to get a subscription to a tape service to get sermons, or a Christian magazine to be able to get that monthly and get that kind of information. You know what I'm talking about. Back in that day, you had to get your information that way. Now, I mean, who reads a book? Who looks at a magazine? It's all online. And there's so much. The challenge now is sorting through what you can't waste your time on and getting down to what you really need to pay attention to. That's a stress. Family tensions. I would be surprised if you haven't had some family tensions over recent elections or things that are going on in our society. When you lose your job, there's all kinds of losses that we can have. And you may have had some losses, maybe not as big as losing a job, but you may have had losses of different kinds that that stress you out. We all got our health problems. Sometimes those get better, but generally as we get older, they get worse, right? That's a stress. Inflation. Does anybody not know you can't buy as much as we did just 2 or 3 years ago? And then I just threw this one in because it is possible when you see a lot of these things that you make them worse than they actually are. That can happen. So as near as we are to the Lord's coming, it still could be a couple, 5 years from now, easily. And we may be facing some difficult times from the devil until God brings his difficult times on the earth, that time of testing. So that is a stress point. Don't make things worse than they are. Major changes from surgery to moving, which, by the way, our secretary is moving about 10 miles farther north up towards Liberty. That's going to be a stress on them. You can have, 2 or 3 of these things happen all at once, and it just kind of puts you on edge. And then too many things. This is a big deal. You might remember back at the end of the 80s and into the 90s, there was a movement to simplify. I mean, that was a whole social thing that was going on to get rid of everything you can and live with as few stuff as you can. That's actually not a bad idea, because as we get older, and especially as we get our debts paid off and have more money to work with, we buy stuff. I bought a skill saw. I don't know, 6 or 8 years ago. I had always wanted a good skill saw to do what carpentry work I did do. I had been working for years at one Judy bought for me at a farm sale that was so messed up you can't believe how maddening it was to cut a 2x4. But that's all the money I felt like I could spend. Well, I bought a Skill. That's the name, Skill saw. I can cut wood. I just don't know what I can build with it right now. At any rate, you see how you can easily build up more stuff than you actually need. But you always wanted. Don't do as I do. And then this is just true. As a Christian, if you allow yourself to become spiritually lazy, it's going to make your stress level worse. Now, I'll just put that out there. You write it down. You pray over that. If you begin to take a step back and you begin to get, I shouldn't use the word lazy. That's not a very politically correct term. But that's what I'd call myself when I take a step back from where I need to be. That does not help. That makes it worse. So you need to lean into your faith, not take a step back from it. Anybody hearing what I'm saying? Okay. Yes?
Before all these things happen, how we supposed to live. That's one of them.
And I have told a couple that we know in the Middle East that as stressful and difficult as their circumstances, they're living in an epic place, in an epic time, and are going to have an epic testimony that the rest of us are not going to have. And I believe that with all my heart. But we are now here also living in epic times. We need to step up, not step back, just as you were talking about with Peter. So, the best the world has to offer. I'm going to run through some of the best, and there's some good things, but we have more. I didn't know it, but I remember it was last month or this month is in the UK, Stress Awareness Month. I celebrate it all year long, but they're having a whole month of it in the UK. And so they've got this brochure that I found on their webpage that was actually pretty good. We'll just run through these real quick. Connect with someone. Well, yeah. As I mentioned Sunday, preached Sunday night, we're designed in every way to be connected creatures. I can shake your hand. I can give you a hug. We can have a conference. Everything about humans is for connectedness. And of course, connected with God as well. So that's good advice. Connect with someone. Now, you have to be careful who you connect with. There's two kinds of friends. If you don't know this, let me tell you, and you need to nail this down. There are two kinds of friends that you can have. Those who, when you're around them, they empower you. They build you up. They tell you, you're looking good. The other kind of friend drains you. You need to be around them. They need a friend who will encourage them, but they will drain you. You have to be careful not to let that drain you down too far, and you have to take a step back from that. But there are two kinds of friends. You need to label your friends, and the ones who are draining you, feed them, minister to them, but know when to take a step back and go to the other kind of friends who just being around them with a cup of coffee is going to make you recharged. This is huge. It didn't come from the UK. That came from me. So prioritize sleep. Yeah. Yeah, you need to go to bed early. You need to rise early and then move. That's the third one. You need to move. You probably need to move more than you are. Yes, I know it hurts. Tell me. One of the things I have dreaded most in thinking about the remote possibility that what I've done to my ankle is going to result in another surgery, which is going to mean I can't get up every day and exercise, and I'll lose all that, and I'll have to start all over again. See, I like to have lots of things to worry about when I don't have anything else to worry about.
Good job.
Thank you. You're one of my kinds of friends. I'm just not quite sure where I'm going to label you. Next, spend time in nature. Now, they're probably coming from a whole place I'm not coming from, but it does do you good to spend time in nature. It just does. Deep breathing. Apple came out with an app on their watch, and it was called. So one of the things about Apple is their genius is simplicity. The app, it's real catchy in its name. It's called Breathe. And I thought, what a cockamamie, what a goofy thing. And yet, I decided one day I would test it. And I tested it with the blood pressure cuff, and I did the breathing with the help of the app. And you don't need the app, you can do it on your own. But the app helps you do it. And you know what? It dropped my blood pressure. I think it's connected to that psalm that says, "Be still and know that I am God." I was going to say shut up, but that's not politically correct. We need to be quiet and be still. And that does something for us in all ways, physiologically, emotionally, and I think spiritually as well. So, good. And then practice mindfulness. I've been talking about this and I don't even know what they mean by that for sure. It's probably not something good, but I do know what I've been preaching from Ecclesiastes. One of the things that Solomon figured out, and I've been putting it to you this way: when you sit down to that plate of food, think about that first bite and enjoy every bite. Don't just get through it. Don't just finish the meal. Enjoy it. I'll never forget pastor at First Baptist Dallas decades ago, before W. Criswell. I'm trying to think of his name now. George Truitt. Sat down to leftovers his wife had fixed. And he said, "Honey, you're going to have to bless this because I am not thankful for it." So unless you're in that mode, that's what Solomon's advice was. It's a gift from God just to enjoy those simple, everyday things. Now, I don't know whether that's what they mean by practicing mindfulness. It's not? What do they mean by it?
Yoga and all the other stuff that the kids are being taught at school.
Yeah. Well, they should have come to me and I could have given them a better definition. So we got something more. We got lots more. Those are all good, depending on how you play them out. But we got lots more than that. Just run through some scriptures real quick. 1 Timothy 1:7. For God hath not given us the spirit of fear. Why wouldn't you be crazy with all the things that are going on? Because that's not the gift of God. The gift of God is not fear, but it's power and love and a sound mind. Am I interpreting this right? This is a gift from God. We have been gifted, if we'll take advantage of it. I pray oftentimes for our people that are going through stressful situations. And especially if I know that they're an immature Christian, that the Spirit will tweak them and cause them to lean into their faith. That's what's happened to me many a time when I've been sitting on the edge of the bed in tears. I remember that so far, 70 years now, He hasn't been late or let me down in any way. Now, that's a pretty powerful thing to remember. So whatever I'm facing today, it's no challenge for Him. We have been gifted, if we will lean into it, if we will tap into it, power and love and a sound mind. And then 3 different times, there's actually about 4 different times in the New Testament We got a third one. Habakkuk 2:4, Romans 1:17, and Hebrews 10:38. The just shall live by faith. Now, that doesn't mean you have to. And I would venture to say that most of our church, most Christians don't. But it's available to them. You can, in moments of stress and crisis, when you would otherwise be crazy, tap into that faith and let that faith settle you. Live by that and not by sight. Who are you going to believe, me or your lying eyes? Right? So we believe what the Word of God says, regardless of what the circumstances might be around us. And then Colossians 3:2, set your affection, not just your sights, but your affection on things above, not on things on the earth. There's power in living by these principles. So stressful events are inevitable. Would we all agree with that? Stress is going to happen to us periodically, sometimes worse than other times. But when you do nothing in response, then you're setting yourself up for even poorer well-being and mental health, not to mention spiritual health. Now, this is a quote I grabbed from somebody else and tweaked it a little bit, but this is really true. If you don't do some things in the face of stress, how's that going to be better? Now, sometimes you can't do anything about it, right? No. There's no time you can't do something about it. And we're going to talk about some of those as we come up. So, number one, see the reality of it. Face it. Scarlett O'Hara, Gone with the Wind, closing scene. I won't think about that now. After all, tomorrow's another day. Well, that doesn't help anything. You need to face what's there as a believer. Proverbs 24:10. I remember reading this thinking, well, yeah, how did that actually get to be a scripture? And then it dawned on me, God was talking to me through this. Proverbs 24:10. If thou faint in the day of adversity, thy strength is small. Yeah. Okay. Well, so why say that? Because you can do some things to make your faith stronger, to make yourself not weaker. This is really simple and fundamental. Preparedness. I'll say it right out loud. I'll admit it. I am a prepper. My basement is full of canned goods and various things. If it goes all bad tomorrow, Judy and I can live right there for several months. Oh yeah, I didn't say that. I didn't mean that. I take that back. We don't have anything.
You already said it.
And we didn't bankrupt anybody. We didn't even really spend any extra money. We just bought 2 or 3 extra cans, 2 or 3 extra bags, a little bit here and a little bit there. And over a period of a year or two, and then cycling things through, we're ready. And if it all doesn't go bad, we'll just eat it. But do you know how much... I love this meme somebody put on Facebook. So you got the tornadoes going off on TV, and this is what it looks like for you when there's a tornado watch and you're ready. Do you see it? The ruby slippers?
Yeah.
Wizard of Oz? Okay, I don't have to explain it. Pretty cool. It does make you feel pretty good to know that you're prepared. That's one less thing that I don't have to worry about. I don't have to think about it. When there's a lot of people who are stressed out and worried, what are we going to do if they shut the electricity off? I'm ready. We got heat, we got light, we got food. I don't know what the cats are going to do, but we got all we need. Next, we got way more than the world. Search the Word for Bible characters that face stress. If you've never done a study like that, just pick some Bible characters that faced a stress and see what they did. And see how they came out. And don't forget, Hebrews 11 gives you a list. The first part had great victory. The others, not so much so. They had to hide in caves, sawn in half. Okay. But they were counted as victors by God because of their faith. So there's that. If you've never done, just pick one character. Don't get overwhelmed by the whole Bible. Just pick a character. Abraham, Moses, they all had stress. How did they deal with it? In some instances, they were victorious. In other instances, they screwed things up real bad. Moses, he didn't get to enter the promised land because he shot his mouth off. Actually, wasn't his mouth. He smote the rock instead of speaking to it. You know, little things with God may mean an awful lot. Anyway, there's that. That can be very powerful. And then you need to take a break when it becomes too much from all of it. Call those vacations, if you will. You may need to take a vacation from Fox News. If you're watching CNN, that's just going to add to your stress. Social media. I enjoy taking breaks from social media. But it does need to be temporary because you need to know what's going on. You need to know what's going on in the world. You need to know what's going on with your friends. Okay, so those breaks need to happen, but they need to be temporary ones. So next, move toward what helps. We talked about those different kinds of friends. You need to categorize your friends. You need to know those friends that when you go to them, they always recharge you. Now, there's ministry to be done among those other friends, right? It's not all about you. Sometimes it's all about everybody else. But from time to time, you're going to have to know when you need a recharge and who can do that. There are some people that if I'm around them, they are going to need me to help them. They're not going to help me in any way. I remember a pastor in St. Louis years ago. He was late at church on Saturday night finishing up a sermon. This is a mega church. And the phone began to ring, and in these mega churches, pastors don't answer the phone. But something made him answer the phone. And it was a guy in the community who they had helped him many times. He was one of those projects that never gets done. You know what I'm talking about? And he said, I remember thinking while I was talking to him, oh man, I don't need him for anything. We don't need him for anything. He said, the thought came to me, you don't need him, but he needs you. That has helped me so many times when I have had people come in my direction who I know what it's going to take from me, and I don't want to do it, and I have to remember I am a servant and a son, and I've been called. And so have you. So there's that. And, there's all kinds of things that you need to move toward. Friends, prayer, music. We talked a little bit last week about it. Music is huge. And I'm not a music person. Why did I marry a music person? Anyway, I'm not a music person. I don't listen to music hardly ever except when we worship. If we worship and we sing and you don't sing, there's something wrong with you spiritually. Now, you nail that down. There's something wrong with your spirit if you don't worship when the church worships. I found that true for me. There have been times, there's a reason why I don't sit on the platform. You know why I don't sit on the platform? Because it would just kill me and kill my worship at some of the things I would see looking out there. So in whatever ways you need to keep yourself from being distracted, you need to express your gratitude and worship. And if you don't sound good, join the club. So music is huge. If you don't sing every day when you praise the Lord, when you pray to the Lord, you're missing power for you every day. I always try to do that. I'm always careful to do that when nobody's listening for obvious reasons. But singing is a design of God to do something for you that nothing else does, that it is what it is. And then next, look at it all differently. Experiment with a change in a routine or lifestyle. You know, if you only exercise 15 minutes every morning, kick that up to 20. If you're not exercising, that's okay. I'll give you a free funeral. No problem. You'll get to go to heaven. You're just going to get a new body that's going to be better than the one you got here. Diet. I can't tell you how powerful it is to give up sugar. You will be mentally more alert, healthier, and you will find that your palate enjoys food more just by giving up sugar. That's just one thing, although it's in almost everything that you buy at the store. At any rate, change up some little thing. If you brush your teeth with an electric toothbrush, I was going to be ridiculous. Make some small change. If you start on the right, start on the left. You'd be surprised what the littlest thing can do. You know, if you have your devotion time in the evening, change it up, start doing that in the morning, which is a whole lot better for a lot of reasons. But just change things up a little bit. You know, Judy and I will do our evening devotion, and we'll do it a certain way. And there's about 3 or 4 different models that we use. Right now, we're using Jonathan Cahn's Mysteries, Book of Mysteries. You go through that for a whole year. And then when you're done with that, you can start back over because you've forgotten what he said, but you can use a different model. We do that. Just a little tweak can make a huge difference in things. Instead of you doing your devotion by yourself, call somebody and pray with them over the phone, them with you. So you get my point. And then finally, read the back of the book again. Reread our text, Revelation 3:10. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience. Okay, we probably need to stop there. I need to assess myself. Am I keeping his word? Well, I can't get the rest of that verse if I'm not keeping his word. Because thou hast kept the word of my patience, I will keep thee from the hour of temptation, which shall come upon all the world to try them that dwell upon the earth. So we've got all of those things that the lost world knows about to make them more emotionally healthy. But we've got so much more than that. Well, we haven't even talked about us, the church, where assess this for just a moment. Has this church, not just a church, but just narrow it in, has this church in some way helped you? Maybe you'd have got through it without the church, but this church or some believer in this church has aided you in getting through some difficult time. I know I can say that a dozen different ways. I'm glad to be in this church. I know that there's a dozen of you I could come to you at any time and say, I need $500 right now. And you'd say, well, I know a guy. So we've got what the world has got, and we've got a better perspective on that and so much more. So these are practical things that will help you be well-centered. That's probably a bad word to use as well. That's a Hindu concept, be well-centered to be able to deal with the prophecy and the world that's coming. So we'll stop there.